You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey, people-centric leaders, it's Stephanie Anderson, and welcome back to another episode of the People Centric Podcast. I think we have kind of an interesting topic today. It's something that maybe you've thought of before, but I think gives a new frame and twist for it. So I'm excited to talk about this. And so with me today, I've got Diana Royalty and Bethany Taff. And you feel free to say hello if you would like.
Hello.
I refuse to say hello. Oh, okay. We're going to get spicy, Diana, on this episode, which is my favorite flavor.
Oh, no. I just thought it was funny that you were like, if you want to. And I was like, I don't want to.
You can say no. Yeah. Okay. You can wait to be called on later. Yeah. But today our topic is active versus latent error. And I don't know about you. I recently was introduced to these terms, and I think as you hear them, they will make sense. But I wanted to start us off with a story. So many years ago, when I was a little kid, my grandpa came into town. My grandparents didn't live in the same state as me growing up. Came into town, and he wanted to make us all pancakes for breakfast, which we were really excited about. It's going to be so fun. So he makes these pancakes. We sit down. We pour the syrup all over them. We dig in and take our first bites and nearly vomit. Because the pancakes tasted like salt. They were just salty, terrible. Like you had just put maple syrup on some Play-Doh and decided to chomp in.
Oh, maple syrup on Play-Doh is a really gross,
a really clear
very
taste.
This is what this tasted like.
I tasted it when you said it, and I'm out.
Right.
Yeah.
So that happened. And I'm a child, so we're in my childhood home, right? Let's fast forward like 20 years into the future. I'm home from college on Christmas break in my childhood home at my parents' house. I decide to make a cheesecake, right? And so I'm making this cheesecake. I'm bebopping along. I'm about to pour it into the pan to bake it. And my little chef brain thinks, you're supposed to taste things as you go just to make sure it's good. So I stick a spoon into the batter and taste it. And it tastes horrible. And it tastes like salt.
Oh, no.
Right?
Oh, no.
So
cheesecake salt.
Salted cheesecake, which is not the same as salted caramel cheesecake. It's just salt.
That is good. The right amount of salt.
The right amount of salt. The wrong amount of salt in a cheesecake is really, really terrible. So I had to throw the whole thing away. So as you listen to those stories, you know, we could analyze these a couple different ways. Is everyone in my family bad at baking? Are we just like genetically predisposed to bad baking? Did my grandpa and I both stupidly grab the salt container and pour salt with did we just not read the containers? How did we do this? Right? How does this happen?
Did both of you mismeasure horribly?
Yeah. Are we just really, really bad at this? Yeah. Bunch of dummies. We're not paying attention. Yeah. Right. So that's one way you could tell the story. I'm going to add now some context to this story. In my parents' home, the salt and sugar are kept in identical containers. They are these giant, old Tupperware style containers. They are exactly the same, and they are unlabeled. So there is no one that says salt and one that says sugar. Nobody even took a Sharpie and wrote it across. They're just 2 Tupperware containers full of a white, rocky, powdery substance. And they are next to each other in the cabinet. And it has been that way my entire life.
I was literally thinking, like, surely somebody took a Sharpie to one of those things. But, like, are they different sizes? Like, how is everybody not making that mistake?
Yeah,
I just need to know.
They are identical sizes, identical colors, identical materials.
So do people just have to taste it every time to make sure that they...
Well,
or is it like your mom and dad know that the salt's on the left and like it's just like...
That's it.
Yeah.
My dad is the cook chef in our family, and he just knows. Like, he just puts them there and his brain remembers which is which. The rest of us,
I would mess that up over time.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever looked at salt and sugar just like next to each other. Like, and if you are still thinking we're all crazy, go home and pour a little sugar in one palm and a little salt in the next. And then close your eyes for 5 seconds, reopen them really fast. And like, how similar do they look, right? So the only way to really, really tell the difference, unless you're just like, I don't know, Spidey eyes, a true chef, is you have to taste it. And so now with that information, where was the error? Was it me and my grandpa actively are bad at baking? We're bad at measuring. We don't pay attention. We don't have good attention to detail. Or is it the 2 canisters look identical with very almost identical looking substances and they're right next to each other?
Yeah. I will also add that I have done this before. I have also done this, right? I don't know anyone who has cooked that has not at some point mixed up sugar and salt unless you don't take them out of their original packaging or whatever. Maybe then. But maybe we should back all the way up and figure out, like, why aren't we changing the color of one of these things? Can we just like make salt blue? Like, that would really help. And I also insert another one in here that between salt and sugar, but also like baking soda and baking powder. Like, has anybody been there? And then also because it's like, why are their names even like so like baking powder, baking soda? Like, it's sometimes, and they look similar. I don't know.
You know what also looks similar to those is cornstarch.
Yeah.
And I have made that mistake before. One time I made a whole batch of cookies and accidentally put cornstarch instead of baking powder. And so I made a really funky toffee. But it was not cookies. Right?
Probably still was good.
So this is the definition of active versus latent error, what we're talking about, right? Because if we think about these baking scenarios, active error would mean we all, and maybe we'll just speak about me and my grandpa actively chose to put salt in these things. We did not pay attention. We measured wrong, right? Like we actively did something wrong. Latent error would say, actually, it's that you have these identical canisters of identical materials that are next to each other. So who do we blame in this moment?
Listen, because I don't want to feel dumb, because I've done this before, I'm going to blame the canisters. That seems obvious. And then again, I'm going to back up and blame the manufacturers. Why? Why are these exactly the same?
Right.
I'm blaming whoever put them in the exact same canister. Your parents.
I can give you my dad's phone number for you to ring him up and be like, what's wrong with you? How dare you? Right? What made you think
to call your dad? I would love to call your dad. Please send me his number. I have things I need to say.
This would be the most hysterical episode if we just played phone a friend right now and called Steve and we're like, Steve, what's wrong with you? And you would just get the deepest sigh. because
he does not need that drama.
No, he's used to my shenanigans, and he also knows that I inherited those shenanigans from him. So he knows if I'm calling him and I'm asking a weirdly specific question, he's like, "What are you up to?" But again, like, I think this is where, oftentimes when we're training managers and leaders, we talk about the difference between blame and accountability. And how we often frame it this way is blame is focused on the person and accountability is focused on the problem. Those are the difference between the two. And frankly, I think our culture is like pretty good at blaming. We like to just be like, you did it wrong. You weren't paying attention. If you'd paid more attention, you would have, even with the canisters the same, you would have seen the difference between the salt and sugar. Because if you would have looked really closely, Stephanie, they are slightly different granular sizes, or you should have tasted it before you put it in the recipe, right? That's blame, right? But I think then where people get confused is they don't understand what the accountability could look like, and how do I actually focus on the problem when the person in front of me did make the error. Like Stephanie did put salt in the cheesecake, and pretty low stakes to be making a cheesecake at home, but what if we were a bakery? And what if it was my job to make 100 cheesecakes today to stock the bakery or for a huge event? And what if I put salt in 100 cheesecakes? Right? How do we do blame versus accountability? And this is where I like the idea of introducing the active versus latent error language, because I think it helps you think about it just a little differently. No, did I actively choose to put salt in the cheesecake? Did my grandpa actively choose to put salt in the pancakes? No, it was a latent error. Latent error meaning there was something that made it really, really easy for me to make that mistake. If we looked at it, right? Someone, cough, cough, Steve, right? Someone put these materials in identical containers right next to each other. It was really, really easy for human error to happen. And so we wanted to talk about this more and maybe share a couple more examples of where we see this happening in the workplace, and how do you know if it's active or latent error at work, right? Because this baking example, I don't know about you two, I'm like, feels pretty clear cut to me. I think a lot of us could be like, oh yeah. But sometimes we still blame the person for that. But what are some examples maybe that you two have seen, that we've seen as consultants, where we see people being blamed for something, but maybe there's a latent error we actually haven't addressed in a process or in a software or just in the company in general?
I think a generic one that we see a lot is like, this group keeps missing this deadline, right? Like these people in this department keep missing this deadline in this process. They can't get it together. They can't get it done. And when I hear things like they can't, or we keep, or they keep, and it feels like a continual thing that multiple people keep doing, then I stop. That makes me pause and be like, what's happening before that and after that that's causing this? Like, why are multiple people, right? Same as your story, multiple people generations apart made this same mistake at the same house doing the same thing, right? And so I back up and I say, lots of people are doing this. Many of you cannot hit this deadline. That means there's a process problem, not every human problem. And so I tend to like stop there and back up.
Right. Like, did you maybe accidentally time that deadline at the same or close enough time with another important deadline or another milestone or event or something that happens in the business regularly with that makes it really hard for people to do both things successfully? And then at that point, you're just kind of asking people to maybe individually prioritize and try to decide, well, which one feels more important to me because the deadline is the same and I've only got 40 hours in a week and I know I can't finish both. And I think what we see happen a lot in organizations is that like people don't always pick the one they feel is as important as what leadership would pick. And so is that active error because I chose to pick one, or is it latent error because we put these two deadlines on the same day and maybe didn't realize it? And so blame or accountability.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important to note that when I hear it, I will ask and just sort of say like, what's happening? And if I can get 3 people to say the same thing, then I know it's not a person. I know it's not like I'm choosing this. It's like, no, I get this thing from engineering and then I have to do these 12 things and like this thing gets blocked up here, right? It's generally because there's other things that are preventing it. And so it's not, I don't normally see people like, well, I waited till the last minute. I don't hear those types of things.
Right.
People want to come in and do a good job. And so they don't want to fail and miss a deadline. And I think it's generally like that. Oh, I keep hearing the same thing over and over.
Yeah. I'll ask more questions too and wonder about like a latent error when the answer for like, why isn't this happening starts feeling like, well, they just don't care. Or leaders are saying to me, I just don't know how I can get people to care about this. Especially when it's related to like accomplishing a task or meeting a deadline or something like that. Was talking with a client recently, and they have this internal deadline that they've always had hit in the summer, and out of 100 managers, only 15 have completed it. So do they have 75 bad managers who don't care about this thing or are refusing to do it? And I kind of challenged them. I said, well, okay, so like that's a pretty big number of people. That's not just 1 or 2 people missed it. Like what else is happening? And also helped them like zoom out a little bit and say, you also have this other big project we talked about last week that's running behind. And my hunch is it might be the same thing that's causing that to be behind that just caused 75 leaders to miss this deadline. So maybe we need to dig a little more instead of hosting a meeting and saying, you all need to get it together and we're going to draw a hard line and you all have to have it done by this day. We could have 1 million of those meetings and it might not change anything. And you're going to get really frustrated and your people are going to get really frustrated. Or we could look at like, what is getting in the way? Because there's something getting in the way because lots of things are behind and lots of people are missing the mark.
Yeah, I was thinking about another example that I've heard. And I've heard this, I feel like I've heard this one at multiple organizations. And it's like the attendance policy. I feel like that's a really big one. And for whatever reason, I don't think those are typically designed very well. And so like sick leaves and time off and stuff like that. And so whenever I hear people, and I feel like this has come up again at multiple organizations where it's like, well, I had to write another person up because of something with the attendance policy, or these people keep lying about how they're using their time off. And I know that they're not actually sick, or they're not actually going to the doctor, or whatever it may be, or like there's some kind of like quote unquote abuse of the time off policy, which makes me always like, that's sort of a flag to me. That's like, maybe like tell me more about what the policy is, and like how do people accrue time off, and how do they communicate that, and what happens if they run out but their kid gets sick, or like is it just really clear? What does that look like? Anyways, so I just think I don't know why. Diana, maybe I don't know why, but that's one in particular that I feel like typically is not designed well. And everybody's going to have time off. Like, that's just like, you just have to have that as a human. Like, you're going to get sick. There's going to be unforeseen circumstances. You need a break from work sometimes. Like, You just have to have that. And so I think that people, when it's not designed well, people will find a way to take time. They will find a way to take time off, whether it's for the defined thing that or not. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it might look like abuse of the system, but I don't know if that's always the intention behind it. If it's designed really well, then I think you could avoid some of those things. Like, I don't remember how it was, but there was one organization that had like a points system established, like with their time off policy or something, and you only got certain amount of points. It wasn't like an hours thing, anyways, and you could like, I don't know. It felt confusing, which is the problem. And so I think it was like so confusing that people were like, I don't understand how I get points and why certain time off is this many points, but other time off is not this many points. And what happens if this comes up? And so anyways, I feel like I'm just kind of going on about this, but I think that's one I've heard a lot, and it feels very confusing. And I don't know why it's a system that seems to be so poorly designed so often.
You're so right. And I think it's because there's a couple of reasons, but to your point, they are often designed poorly. They are often not designed to work with how humans behave and act, right? And do things and human lives. They're designed in this weird, unreal world where they just say like, okay, I'm going to give you this much time for being sick because generally people are sick this much. And I'm going to give you this much time for vacation because generally people should be able to take this much vacation. You know, like it's designed around these weird generalities and not around how humans actually work and behave. And I think when you start doing that kind of stuff, it introduces the ability for people to just make those errors and do it wrong, because it's like, well, yeah, I only take one sick day a year because I'm thankfully very healthy. And so I should be able to use my sick time for emotional days off, or if my kids are sick, right, I should be able to use that because it's the time given to me. But I'm fortunate enough to be healthy myself, and I like don't need an actual sick day. But then the boss is like, well, that's not what that was designed for. But it's like, man, you designed it for this weird, unreal situation that's never going to be my life. And so I do have to game the system now, right? And I think when we design systems and policy and procedure without thinking about how the humans are going to interact and use those policies, procedures, and systems, we're doing a huge disservice. But I think for many, many people, it's just done that way. Like, this is the policy, now the human has to work within it. This is the procedure, now the human has to work within it. And instead of saying, how will humans work within this? Let's design it well. We do the opposite and say like, well, now the human has to work within this design. And I think it should be flipped, and it should be said, humans are going to work this way. How do we design it so that it's done well with the human in place, you know?
Yeah. It makes me think too of a time, and I think this is related, but it makes me think about like when we set KPIs within organizations too. I think sometimes like the KPIs that are chosen are accidentally enforcing or reinforcing like the wrong behaviors. And so then people start doing things to like, again, game the system or making you know what I mean? Like, so sometimes we're just like focused on the wrong things, and we're like, well, why is this thing happening? And it's like, oh, well, because probably we're measuring the wrong metric. And I think that's what this is sort of making me think about too. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, we've had clients in the past. One I'm thinking of, they built things on an assembly line, and some of these things had to be very, very precise because they went to one client that was like a government client. That's what I'll say. And then some of these things that they were building went to consumers and they didn't have to be as precise. So they implemented a thing where they were like, if it's coming off the line and it's not perfect, it gets a red tag. And if you get 3 red tags, you're in trouble, right? And so they were, as the employee, they were like, I'm going to just make sure every single one of these is perfect. And if it's not, I'm going to push it back up the line. And so what they were doing is they were like pushing most of these products back up the line and saying it's not perfect. But it was because they didn't want to get that red tag. And so they were pushing back these products that were actually very fine and could have gone on. They weren't the government specific perfect to use in this other industry, right? And so half of their product was getting sent back and they were like, why do we have so many of these getting sent back? This is crazy. It's causing a lot of overwork and rework and extra time. And it was because they designed this weird red tag policy and they didn't think about, well, humans are going to avoid the red tag. And so then it's going to cause all of this rework. And when we told the leaders, like, this is what's happening, they were like, oh my God, that was not our intent. Like, but it was like, yeah, we know, but they have to do it that way because they don't want to get in trouble. So now you're building this process so that it's like a fear-based thing so they don't get in trouble. And again, you didn't think about how humans are going to work within this process and procedure and what it's going to do to them. You just blanket said, if it's not perfect, you get a red tag, right? And so yeah, I think when you also design procedure and then make some sort of weird accountability to it, people are going to say, well, I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm going to do everything I can up into including cheating to win because you've given me this unrealistic standard. We do this exercise where I give someone a dice and I say, your job today is to roll a 6 every single time. That's your job. That's your job today. And so they'll roll it and I'll be like, you're failing. You're failing at your job. You're not, you got a 6. Good job. Now you're failing again. You're failing again. You're failing again. And every single time, if I'm on them enough, they start cheating. They'll turn the dice and set it down. And I'll be like, good job. They turn the dice, they set it down. Good job. You have gotten the 6 every time, but you did it nefariously and you cheated to get there. So is that really the outcome that I was looking for? No, but they were hitting the mark. And so I think you have to think about, like, what are humans going to do to hit this mark? What are people going to do to accomplish this thing? And it's the same with the salt and sugar, right? You designed a system that introduces the ability to make error very easy, and it's gonna happen, right? So if you design the system to where error is going to happen or people are going to have to cheat to survive, it's going to happen.
Yeah. So we should expect human imperfection is what you're saying.
Yeah. Because I think it's like if you're designing something around perfect human behavior, if you're designing something to say people will do this perfectly every single time, it's just not gonna work. Like humans can't do perfect every single time. And now there's probably some of you that just heard me say that and you're like, untrue. Perfection exists in certain capacities. I'm like, I don't think so. Only machines can do perfect every single time. I think humans can do perfect a lot, right? I think you can do excellent a lot, but to say every single time I'm going to reach and grab the right canister, probably not, because there's probably going to be someday I am tired or upset or my mind is somewhere else and I'm just going to grab the wrong container. It reminds me, if you've seen the movie The Emperor's New Groove, there's a funny scene in that, which if you haven't seen this movie, go watch it. It's a good chuckle. But the main character, the woman, I can't even remember her name, but she asked Kronk to like pull the lever. We just watched.
Yzma.
Thank you. Thank you. Yzma is like, Kronk, pull the lever so we can go down to the lab. And Kronk pulls the lever. And then as she's going down, she goes, wrong lever. And then the next shot you see is she comes up and there's like a crocodile holding on to her. And she's like, why do we even have that lever? And then they pan back to where Kronk is standing. And there's two identical levers right next to each other. So is Kronk a total dingus who just pulls the wrong lever all the time, which in the movie he is a little bit? Or is that bad design that created a latent error? Why do we have two identical levers next to each other that do very different things? One will send you to the lab and one will send you to the pit of crocodiles, right? So I think that's a good point to make, is like, if you've designed a process or a system or something in your company, a policy around humans behaving perfectly all the time, it's just not gonna happen. And I think also to what we're saying too is like, how would you know? Maybe you have a design error somewhere in your company that's causing latent errors. It's also noticing, where are we seeing people, quote unquote, take advantage or cheat? Or where are we seeing mistakes getting made over and over and over again? Where are we seeing multiple people struggle to do something? That might mean you've got a latent error somewhere. And now that doesn't mean it's completely untrue that someone could actually be cheating or someone could actually be taking advantage of your system. But if it's multiple people, there's probably something else there. Because to say that, multiple people have all just decided to just ruin your day and make this error all the time and just screw the company and make your life really hard, we just don't find that to be true. Like, that's a myth. Like, we just don't find that to be true, that there's just these hordes of people inside companies that are just trying to take the business down by making these small errors all the time or intentionally missing deadlines. Like, the reality is, I think as adults, we're all pretty good at sniffing out when there actually is a villain and there actually is bad behavior. So don't let yourself convince yourself there's tons of villains when really it might just be latent error, and we're expecting people to perform perfectly every single time. The last example I'll give on this and then maybe wind us down is, I remember one time I was like checking out somewhere at a store and they wanted you to like select a yes, no on the transaction amount. And I look down and I see a red and a green. So I hit the green and she's like, oh, you did it wrong. It just canceled the whole transaction. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, it asked like, is this right? And she goes, no, it asked. And it was like the weird flip where it was like, do you approve this amount? Or, I think you all, Bethany and Diana are nodding too.
I've
We've
been
all
there for sure, where I'm
where
like,
it was
why is it that color?
Why is that color when universally
why did you word it that
wrong
way
3 times before I got it right? Yeah.
Right. Or here's maybe a spicy take. You went to vote and the answer that you want to pick sounds like the no when you want to say yes. And you're like, why is this so intentionally confusing?
All the time.
All the time. And so like, that's latent error, right? And now maybe it's active error. Maybe they're trying to get you to do something there. But like in that scenario at that checkout, that's a latent error. So you just made your cashier's job's more frustrating. You just made the customer experience more frustrating because it canceled my entire transaction, because technically I said, yes, cancel this, when I meant, no, don't cancel it. But the colors were switched and they were on the wrong sides and all of that. So, I think this is an interesting topic. And again, a good reframing for us of like the blame versus accountability. It's like, how do you actually focus on the problem and not the person? And I think you need to think about, well, was this an active error or was there an opportunity for latent error here? And I think it changes how you would approach that person as the manager, right? Like if I just made 100 cheesecakes with salt, but then you could go back in the kitchen and see the canisters and all of that, you're probably still going to be upset with me because, right, that was a costly mistake, but you're probably going to approach that conversation with a lot more grace to say like, hey, I totally see how this happened, and we're going to fix that so it doesn't happen again, and just make it easy for people to do the right thing, make it easy for people to have success at work, make it easy for people to pick the sugar for the cheesecakes or the pancakes. Because I'll tell you, making the cheesecake, I was so mad having to drive to the grocery store and get more cream cheese. Like the amount of anger that was spewing out of my body that the poor cashier probably had to see. Like, who's unhappy buying cream cheese? It was me, right? And so make it easy for people to be successful in your work and in your jobs. And instead of just maybe blaming them all the time, or if you find yourself saying they just don't care, or how could they think that, how could they do that, everyone's taking advantage of this, nobody wants to do a good job, maybe take a step back and look at where are those errors happening, and might you have some latent errors that are actually making it hard for people to do a good job and do the right thing and get the result that you want. So, final thoughts, Bethany and Diana?
No, I love what you just said. I think you wrapped it up really well. Like, why would we make it harder for people if we're all trying to like accomplish the same goals at the end of the day? I think we have this, like, there's some kind of like weird morality thing that we have that's like, no, everybody's got to just be perfect and have it all together. And it's like, the reality is we're just human and we're going to make mistakes. And so how can we help each other out and make it a little bit easier? And then is there, anyways, that's a whole other conversation, but it's like, are we saying like, do not hold people accountable? No, we're not saying that. That's another conversation. But we're saying where you can, look for holes in your systems and your processes to help make it easier for people to do the right thing and to do their job well. And then if you've done that and you're still seeing issues, then like tune in next time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with everything. I love this conversation. As someone who writes a lot of policy and procedure and process, I will say that it's okay to go and test it and just be like, how are people going to use this? Does this look right? Does this feel right? Is this what I intended? And make changes early and often. You know, technologies change, tools change, people change. So I don't know. I am when I write a policy or procedure, I am very intentional about thinking about the human part of it. And I'm not sure that everyone does that. And then also going and just saying like, does this look right? Would this work? And just ask a few people. Because I think when you do it all on your own and in a vacuum, that's where it gets a little weird too.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, thank you both for this conversation. And before you go today, we have some exciting announcements. So this is not your normal outro. So if you normally tune us off at this point, stay for one more minute, please. 2 exciting things happening in the people-centric world. Number one, and I guess these are not in order, but here's the one I'm talking about first. We have a really, really cool webinar coming up. It is free that we think many of you who listen to this will like. It's called 4 Reasons Strategic Plans Fail. So if you are in an organization that does strategic planning and you've ever gotten to the end of 1 year and the plan did not come to fruition, or the plan went in the binder that fell behind the filing cabinet that you found when you moved your office 10 years from now, and you're thinking like, what did we even do with that? Or you've never done strategic planning because you maybe think like, I don't even know how this would help us or why this would work. This webinar is for you, and it is completely free. So please be sure to listen to the outro, read the notes of the podcast on how to get there. It's on Eventbrite. If you go and search People Centric, it will come up 4 reasons that strategic plans fail. The second exciting thing that we get to talk about is we wrote a book. And I may tag Diana for this because actually Dawn and Diana wrote a book. And it is out in the world right now, available for purchase on Amazon. So Diana, tell us the title and tell us about what you wrote.
Yeah, our whole team was a part of it. You guys did edits and rewrites, and I am so thankful for it to be out in the world. But it's called Becoming People Centric, Designing Organizations Where People and Performance Rise Together. And it talks about our framework and how you can install the framework at your own organization or your own department or your own life to help people and performance rise together, which I think is so fun. It's such a great topic.
And I know I'm very biased, but it's a great book. And if you're someone like me who reads a lot and you read business books and you read these type of things, I promise you this one is worth your time. And we tried to make it succinct and to the point. So you're not going to read 100 pages of random stuff and where you're like, okay, you've already told me this 10 times. We wrote this with you in mind. So head to Amazon, grab yourself a copy, buy a couple for your coworkers. We're really excited for you all to be able to read the book. So also details for that in the podcast notes. But thank you for being here today. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here soon.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and